The Jeremy Paxman University Challenge story, which popped up oddly on my phone a few minutes ago, where a contestant from UMIST confidently answers homosexual to a question about military nicknames. Jeremy Paxman says the nicknames cheesemongers, cherry pickers, Bob's Own, the Emperor's chambermaids, and the Immortals have been used to describe which groups of men? And this fellow called Bright from UMIST says homosexuals, and Paxman says no, they're regiments in the British Army, and they'll be very upset with you, UMIST. Well, the point is, UMIST is not entirely wrong. Certainly cheesemongers, I think, would be a euphemism. And the moment, aside from being amusing in itself, in its own right, highlights the unpredictable nature of language and expectations, and words and phrases can change their meaning over time or be understood in drastically different ways depending on the context, the audience, and even the cultural norms. The consultant's answer, the contestant's answer, while absurd in the context of the quiz, is a reminder that the meaning of words such as cheesemongers or cherry pickers often shifts in unexpected ways, and language drift, the gradual evolution of word meanings over time, has led to moments exactly like this, where one person's interpretation can seem comically out of place to another. And the absurdity of game shows like University Challenge lies in the idea that they demand definitive answers, despite the fact that language and meaning is often very flexible or open to multiple interpretations. The game show format tends to assume there's always a precise answer. At one point I was asked if I would host a game show, and I did in fact go through a few sort of hoops to see whether this was credible, and I thought in the end it is absurd. They wanted me to be a sort of Sherlock Holmes. I thought, no, I'm not a Sherlock Holmes or a Poirot figure. I thought, no, I'm a sort of hirsute Miss Marple, if anything. But the game show format tends to assume too much, and this exchange suggests that assumption can clash with reality in a rather absurd way. In the broader cultural context, the issue of expectation versus reality plays out repeatedly, whether it's the evolution of terms like gay, which transition from meaning happy to a descriptor of sexual orientation, or euphemisms like mentally retarded, which move from clinical use to an offensive slur. Language is constantly changing. Game shows often freeze language and time, assuming fixed meanings, but the truth is more fluid, as indeed if you move from one language to another. Yesterday I was listening to a recording on Turkish television about a bomb threat in a Turkish airport, and the presenter referred to air hostess, whereas we would use the term cabin crew. Very difficult to sort of try and deal with all that in the process of moving from one language to another. Tasim Singh's film Immortals is an example of a work that reflects this dissonance in language and meaning. The film's title, Immortals, could be interpreted in so many different ways. It might evoke grandeur or power in one viewer's mind, but might also be ridiculed when juxtaposed with homoerotic visual overtones. That the movie, with its focus on hyper-masculine bodies and grand CGI-enhanced fight sequences, rather like the film 300, is another example how context shapes interpretation. And while Singh may have intended the film to be epic, certain viewers, like the Paxman audience and the fellow from UMIST, might instead see it as inadvertently camp. This is where the absurdity of both language and game shows emerges. The expectations placed on a word, a film, or even a quiz answer can veer wildly depending on context, cultural shifts, and individual perspective. And what one person sees as a clear-cut answer, a regiment of men, another sees as something wholly different, reflecting their understanding of the world. That's the fun and the folly of such situations, in trying to pin down one correct answer, one right answer, The fluidity of language often escapes us, leading to comical misunderstandings and a certain element of Flaxman arrogance, frankly. Ultimately, whether in game shows, movies, or everyday conversation, we find ourselves navigating a liquid linguistic landscape where there's rarely one definitive meaning for anything.